Welcome to the CBIA BizCast powered by Google. On this podcast, we dive into stories about Connecticut businesses.
Downs Construction actually came to my school.
And business leaders.
I think it's always also really important to be able to see a path forward.
We're shaping the future of Connecticut's economy. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amanda Marlowe, and today we are here with a new business in Connecticut. We're joined by Karen Frost Spokes and her daughter Zoe. Karen is the vice president of COBS Bread USA. So we're just so excited to have you guys here. We've got this amazing spread in front of us that's going to be teasing us this whole conversation. But let's get into it a little bit. Tell us what COBS Bread is.
Oh gosh. So COBS started back in 1980. So with Roger and Leslie Gillespie are the founders. They had a single bakery in Hawthorne, a place in Melbourne, Australia. And they opened a few. I think they got to about 13 or 14 when they realized, let's just pause. We can actually grow the brand substantially by using the franchise model. So when they brought on more franchisees, we just exploded. And since 1980, there's just over 500 locations in Australia and New Zealand. So
wow.
Yeah. And then, so the company itself, I mean, I think it's a pretty simple concept. We bake great bread from scratch. So it's not about, a bag and adding flour or taking things out of a box. It's really sort of putting the flour, the yeast, the oil, the salt in and mixing it up and hand molding back from, sort of the olden days. Well, Roger, actually I should backtrack, is the Gillespie family is actually 4 generations of bakers.
Okay. So
bakers, the bread runs in the blood per se. So, but the company bakes from scratch. We provide phenomenal customer service that just can't be matched from our samples and just product knowledge, etc. And then I think the other key thing is we donate everything at the end of the day that's not sold to different organizations. I mean, since 2003, we actually donated $560 million worth of unsold bread to over 500 charities.
wow.
So the intent is to replicate that here in the Northeast.
Yeah, so you started in Australia, moved over to Canada about 20 years ago?
Yeah, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and mine. I actually came over to Vancouver from Melbourne in 2003 with 9 other people. So one of those people who's actually still with the business is Aaron, Roger and Leslie's son. He is the president. There were 10 of us that came over, and we opened a lot of bakeries in Vancouver. There's about 170 of them now. Before we are launching into the US.
Great. And Zoe, you've been to them all over, huh?
Yeah, it was really fun, like, just growing up with just tasting all, like, the fresh bread, especially, like, when you walk into a bakery, everybody's just so nice. And it's nice to walk into a bakery where there's fresh bread that tastes awesome, and then there's really nice people, which makes you want to go back and get more bread.
That's the model, good food and good service.
Yeah.
Keeps people coming back.
I don't think it, and this is the thing that I love about COBS. It doesn't need to be complicated, right? It's a pretty simple concept. One thing that I think, differentiates us from other companies is we don't have a sit down. Everywhere I sort of drive around, and there's some great bakeries out there for sure, but they're offering coffee or soup and sandwiches, where COBS is just, you come in, you choose what you want, whether it's a sandwich loaf, we can slice it for you. Is it cinnamon buns for the kids? Is it, apricot bread, which is permanently in our freezer. And then you take it home and you go home and you enjoy it with your family. And we won't deviate from that. It's really just about focusing on great bread, great customer service, and then connecting with the community and giving back.
And it was that desire for the great bread, great customer service that really started things up in Connecticut and the US. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Well, interesting story. So Rob and Louise Hayden, who were the franchisees in Greenwich, they are actually expats from Australia. So when they arrived just over a decade ago, they were looking around and really saw an opportunity, or a bit of a gap really, for that demand of fresh bread. So they sort of knocked on our door and said, let's open here. At the time, we were really focusing on the Canadian market and making sure that that was a profitable and viable business model for us to expand. But then really the last 12 months, we really evaluated the US market and saw the need. And so here we are. This is sort of where I accepted the role and the challenge, and then brought on a phenomenal local team just to sort of really guide us through the nuances, who know the US market, and the expansion shall begin.
Yeah, certainly. And so there's currently one in Greenwich.
Yeah, so we opened in Stamford first, and then we opened in Greenwich a couple of years ago. So the intent, Westport is due. I know as soon as we put the hoarding up, there's been a lot of buzz around it, which is super exciting. With the challenges with permitting, we've been delayed, but our plan is to open end of November. And we have a couple of bakeries open before then. But the plan, Fairfield, is on our list of places to go. Norwalk, which is such a fabulous area. Danbury as well is on the list of places to open in the next 12 months.
Yeah, so you're really starting to move into the state, and this is really the start of your expansion into the US as well.
Yeah, we want to sort of tackle the Northeast first. I think just doing what we did similar to Canada of really sort of building mass market and getting the brand recognition out there. So sort of starting the Northeast. We're certainly open to expanding even more. I mean, what does it work? The world is your oyster in the US. I feel like it does.
Yeah, it does.
But that's the starting point.
Okay. So Zoe, for all of our Fairfield County friends listening, what is the go-to that you like if you're after school with your friends?
Oh, definitely like just the high fiber loaf, like just a nice sandwich, like with either it's like a cucumber sandwich. I remember they're so refreshing in the summer. It's really nice. Or my favorite, if I were to have like sort of like a sweet, like savory kind of, it would be a chocolate croissant. It's just so like, I don't know. I love chocolate, and it's a nice treat to have. And then all the bread is just like, I normally have COBS bread in the morning, but I like the chocolate scone is my favorite scone. And then, all of the fruity sort of savory is my favorite to have after school.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to add all those to the list for sure. We've got our perfect taste tester here. We've got to ask her all these questions. So tell us, in coming from, starting in Australia, moving to Canada, now to the US, what are some of the, challenges or obstacles that you've faced, and some of the other parts that were maybe a little bit easier than expanding in other parts?
Challenges, I will say probably finding the right people.
Yeah.
I think, we'll probably elaborate on this, but finding the right people, because the business itself, as much as it's not complicated, right? Again, great bread, great service, getting back into the community or giving back into the community. It's really owner-operator driven. It's not an investment. I think the other piece that I loved about being in the franchise world, the company's not about if you have $1 million, have a bakery. It's really about, are you invested? Are you invested in connecting with the community and giving back and getting involved in fundraisers and hiring the right people, locals, and really developing them into great leaders or whatever they want to do. So I think it's finding people with the passion and that drive. It's a tough business. I mean, you're sort of getting up at anywhere between 2:00 in the morning to, we can push it back to 3 or 4. It's an early start.
Yeah, she knows.
So it's finding the right people to connect and to sort of grow the business and the brand.
So how important is community to a successful franchise?
Huge. When you talk to franchisees who they're going into their second term. So, I'll speak to Kevin, who's our franchisee at Lakeshore in Ontario. He's in his second term, and he's he's the community baker. They've got 2 young kids. So when Tessa started ballet, it was connecting with the ballet schools and fundraising, and Jack's kindergarten, like they were always engaged in that. And then they did, there was an organization called the Light Run, I think, which he's participated in the fun run and raised money for the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really critical. Yes, you do have bakery managers and you'll build your team, but I think no one really looks after the business than, the business owner, right? So, and I think as you, franchisees who have that entrepreneur spirit and are able to look beyond the 4 walls and really connect, you're connecting with a different audience. Again, whether it's a sporting club or your schools or golf, when they've got the fundraisers, it's really just sort of listening to the community and what they're wanting to make that connection.
Yeah, what they want to see and bring more than just having, a local business, but a local neighbor.
Yeah. And I think product goes to that as well too. Like as much as we have our core go-tos here, when we first came to Canada in 2003, we didn't have a cinnamon bun. Like we were like, what are these cinnamon buns? so our guys had to go out and develop a recipe. And now in Australia, they sell cinnamon buns.
Okay.
And one thing that we sort of noticed too was, as we get into different communities, they're looking for different products like challah. Challah is another one where we didn't really sort of have that as an option and then created one. And now the whole range is not just a challah bread, it's your braids and then has the raisins in it and then the rolls, et cetera, et cetera. So, and now challah is actually in our top 20 products.
Wow. So you adapt to the customer need in one area and then it ends up folding into different areas of the world.
And I think that's important too, right? To sort of not be too cookie cut, to go there for the staples, but then to be able to sprinkle in a little bit of the community products and the seasonal items as well.
I remember like COBS would always be a part of like my school. Like if we had fairs, they would always there would be hamburger buns there, or they would just give out free samples, and it'd be so cool to because all my friends now know like COBS back home, and that was their household. Like that was the name that they would say, oh, I'm going to go to COBS to get some bread. And everybody would say that in my neighborhood. So it was cool how big COBS got, and it was really nice to see.
And now that's the challenge, right? Is making COBS that household name here in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. Well, what did we say in the drive up here? That COBS will be known as
Connecticut's own bakery.
Perfect.
Right, COBS, Connecticut's own bakery.
Yeah, you've got the acronym already spelled out for you.
Amanda, there's multiple. There are multiple what stands for COBS. I mean, originally when we first came, we wanted to be called Baker's Delight, of course. But that name was taken. So in Australia, most of them are actually franchised. Most of the Baker's Delights are.
Okay.
But there's actually just a few company-owned bakeries.
Okay.
And we call those COBS. So then that was it. And then it was celebration and opportunity brings success and Canada's own bread store. So now it's Connecticut's. Yeah.
Perfect. I think we're happy to take that name. That's for sure. And so the franchise model that you have, it's a little bit unique. Can you tell us about that?
The franchisee model in the US that we're about to...
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Well, you started something in Canada, right? That was a little bit different.
We did the Manage to Own program in Canada. So we've taken it where we're going to be offering something a little bit unique in the US. What we discovered, part of our learnings over the last 2 decades in Canada was, again, finding the right people who have that drive and that passion from day one. So what we're going to implement for the first 10 operators is after their 16-week training, so they go through a 16-week training course. Once that's completed, we're actually going to be offering them profit share from day one, because we find that, a bit of skin in the game from day one and knowing that this is going to be their bakery. They make the decisions from day one, whether it's how much to make, not to sell out, to hire the right team and to build that culture from day one. I mean, I think today, wherever you work, it's so important. Like you spend so much time at work to be able to create that culture of a safe environment that's inspiring and fun, a fun place to work. I think it just, it makes people want to get out of bed because they want to, not because they have to.
Yeah, there's more buy-in than, say even having to wait longer to get any percentage there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from day one, and the intent is, how cool would it be to have 10 operators sort of crafting that story of going from day one. COBS gave me sort of the helping hand to build equity and become, business owners and franchisees.
And you've had a lot of success stories in Canada as well with your franchisees.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin, I sort of spoke to already. There's a young lady, Sarah, who started in sales. She started as a sales manager in Vancouver. She came to Ontario to be a little bit closer to her family, and we had a conversation. And she wanted to open her own bakery, and I sort of said, "Hey, just pause, get some life experience first." Paired her up with a phenomenal franchisee, Claire, and 12 to 18 months later, Sarah was ready, and she opened the first location actually in London, Ontario, and she's about to open her second.
Wow.
And she, I don't think, has celebrated her 30th birthday. So she's phenomenal. She's all about the people. We created some awards, sort of getting into the 20th year. We figured it would be good to have some franchisee awards and Rookie of the Year awards coming up. And I believe Sarah won the Rookie of the Year last year.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Sounds pretty deserving, too.
Yeah, very, very.
I find it cool how, when people who join COBS, when they go through all that training and you see how much fun they have, and then when they get their own bakery, you can see how accomplished they feel when they have it. And it's like, they should feel so proud of themselves. Like, they have their own bakery now. Like, that's good.
And a support team behind them, if they do need support, right?
Yes, 100%. Going into the franchise model, it is something that I'll speak to, in Canada, we are very high touch. One thing that I hear about other franchises out there's multiple to choose from, right? Is we are very hands-on. Depending on where the franchisee have come from with their background, sometimes you have, if they've got the restaurant experience already, they're pretty good, right? They're great with operations and the production side and sort of managing teams. Whereas if people have come from a nursing background or finance, they need a little bit more guidance. And so the area managers, district managers that we have on the ground are super hands-on. And it's pretty rewarding seeing them go through the first year and navigating the gazillion reports and figuring out what gets poppy seeds and what goes in a paper bag and plastic bag, etc. And then the HR piece to year 2, 3, and 4, where they become a little bit more familiar with the whole process. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty cool business to be involved in.
So, in terms of having those boots on the ground, so to speak, how important is that, especially being here now in the US, to have some of those people to go to?
It's critical. It really is. I mean, the ops team, we've got 3 guys on the ground at the moment who have been instrumental. Zach's actually been with us for just over 12 months and spent a lot of time with our product developers and our key bakers from Canada, just sort of learning again the art of baking. So he's been just instrumental in training the other district managers and preparing them for what's about to happen over the next 4 to 5 months in particular.
I'm sure it's a real ride once you get from that day one up to the first few months.
Yes. There's a lot of balls being juggled right now, but I'm confident that we'll get there.
It's cool to watch for me because it goes from either it's really stressful and then at the end they're super happy and they're proud of what they've done. And you can see.
You think it's stressful?
Well, you seem stressed. But it's you're stressed, but then you see with your team, you have an amazing team. They're all really nice. And then you guys work together to build up. And it's cool to watch.
It's magic.
It's awesome that, you get to a front row seat to all of this. Kind of motivates you for the future, huh?
I guess, yeah. It's a bit nerve-wracking, but my mom makes it seem easy sometimes, and fun. So hopefully it'll be fun too, because it was fun when I was in the bakery when I was doing sampling, which was really fun too. Because I got to like work in the bakery.
Yeah.
So I got to like work with other people, and it was really fun to experience that.
Pretty cool watching the process of it all being made.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have to get you in.
Yeah, definitely.
Get you making some cinnamon buns.
All right, I'm all about it. We've been, someone had brought over a starter, to
for
my
sourdough?
husband. Yeah, and we've been staring at it like, maybe we should try this. But we're good in the kitchen. The
Right.
baking portion, I think that's where we not so strong.
Through COVID, right? I mean, I think everyone, it was like the cool thing to do to try and start the sourdough starter.
Yeah, I think that's what happened, and someone brought it over.
Right. Didn't quite pan out.
Yeah, not so much. I'll stick with the local bakeries.
Well, our sourdough, we actually had our technical baker go over to San Francisco.
Really?
And learn about the starter and actually brought some back. So when you try our sourdough, it is actually from the mother dough from San Francisco.
Okay, very cool.
Traditional French baguette. We sent our guy to France and to learn about. So a traditional French baguette, it's about the ingredients. So I'm not sure if you know, but there's only 4 ingredients in a traditional French baguette, and it's all about the processing. So it's like the fold and trapping the gases, and it's a really cool product to make.
Yeah.
It's again simple, just simple ingredients, no preservatives. But yeah, we've created some pretty cool products.
Now, were you a baker? Were you interested in that, or how did you get involved?
So I was actually with Baker's Delight through high school and university, and just was a salesperson behind the counter and serving customers. And I think that's where my love of people came from. I actually went to Adelaide University to be a school teacher, but didn't take that path. But I think it just highlighted my passion for connecting with people. Went through sales and then decided to get into baking and give it a go. Starting at midnight was probably not my favorite part.
Yeah.
However, going into the bakery and it being completely empty and then leaving and seeing a wall of bread and going, I made that. Of course, if it wasn't burnt, I would totally take credit for this one and this one and this one. It was really rewarding. And then, I just worked, I think, through high school and university, took a bit of a break. And then when the opportunity came up to come to Vancouver, I sort of jumped on it. I was like, why not?
Yeah, and now you've really jumped right in and now are helping, others kind of get started in this business for sure. Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the most important things, as for people that might be even listening and are thinking, oh, maybe this is like a right opportunity for me?
If they're thinking that, they need to scan the QR code and get in contact with me. I can't speak enough about the company. I mean, like I said, it's been 20 years. And I think to have that opportunity of whether it be Sarah in sales or, someone who's come in as a baker and wanting to expand, like they're able to create amazing product, but they actually want to get out into the community and be that entrepreneur. The opportunities are there. And even from finance, if, they don't necessarily have the equity to put down, but they have the right drive and the right passion, then COBS will help them get there.
Yeah, you kind of work with people on different bases of where they're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that was the sort of starting point in Canada where we sort of had, really driven, passionate people in the business that we saw, where they wanted to go. Em and Craig in Ottawa, they're another couple that at least did the Manage to Own program and ended up leasing one of the bakeries downtown in Toronto. And then someone actually came in external and bought the bakery, allowing them to go back to their roots in Ottawa.
Oh, okay.
And they have two of the top performing locations in Ontario. So and I think Em was early to mid 20s when all of that happened for them. And the reality is when we're able to craft stories like that, success stories, then it attracts other franchisees. So, and that's what the business model is really based on. We just, it's a bit of a stepping stone.
Yeah. Now, as you look back, after 2 decades really helping launch this company in Canada and now bringing it to the US, what are some of the top things that you've learned in terms of being a leader and going out on all these limbs, essentially?
Going out on the limb?
Well, taking chances, getting started even in the US.
Right.
Right. That was a chance.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, 2 questions, all right, I think as a leader, I'm big into values. I think that it's, to build that foundation, and I think I mentioned it before, to sort of create that environment where you're bringing people on in that sort of open and honest conversation. I actually just went through the exercise with the leadership team in the US the last 3 to 4 months, and we threw words out and sort of really collaborated, and we came up with our values that actually sounded out magic.
Okay.
Around morale and adaptability and growth, and I always forget the I. Integrity. Thank goodness I pulled that one out. Integrity and then collaboration. And we often refer to it as magic, and everyone's sort of pulling together. So it can't be a one-person show, whether it's the leadership group that we're taking on now or bakeries within their 4 walls. Like, if you don't have the values that you can fall back on when times are tough and really lean in, I think it's just really critical to build that culture, which we've done, which I just think with the leadership crew, it's going to be easier to tackle the next big challenge of coming into the US. And yeah, it's risky, but I think we've got a great product out there. And so I think the challenge that we have in front of us of educating the community as to what's on offer, that's probably the biggest task at hand. So I've got Zoe working on the school kids and the high school going into university, and then I've got the rest of the team spreading the word. So
just about spreading the word right now and finding good people to run the franchises, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even when I was at volleyball camp, I asked some of the girls, like, oh, yeah, I came here. Do you know COBS Bread by any chance? And she was like, yeah. Like, she goes there, and I was like, you guys are already, like, they know you guys. Like,
was it surprising to you?
A little bit, but, like, everybody should know COBS Bread. It's amazing. But it's good to see that. Like, COBS Bread is really, like, going everywhere, and everybody's getting it because they should, because it's amazing bread.
That's awesome. Well, we're really excited to see, what comes of this. I think we're very excited for this Westport location to open up, and we can certainly get down to Greenwich a little bit. It smells unbelievable. So my stomach's been going this whole time. So we'll have to break in soon. Well, thank you so much for being on this BizCast. Is there anything final thoughts that you have?
I think I want to welcome everyone in, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for this opportunity too. I encourage everyone to visit their local COBS as soon as it comes into the community.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for listening to this week's BizCast. You can listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review and let us know if you have ideas for a future podcast. For our full list of episodes, head on over to CBIA.com.